You are now about to witness the strength of street knowledge.
Let's discover hardcover months, but it's this enough so you can know what's up in the hood.
My name is Marcellus Rose III. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I guess in the different roles that I have, I'm a mental health specialist, I'm a psychotherapist, and yeah.
I'm Cherokee Bailey. I'm 19 years old.
So I'm Matthew Bell, marriage and family therapist, but I also work for BAM Becoming a Man program, run the program at the Sullivan High School.
I am Isaac Smith, currently 19, and I am at Wilbur Wright College.
Yeah, I do think it is. Mostly because of like visibility maybe and awareness. Also the stigma. And so I just think that makes it harder for individuals in Black communities to get mental health care.
I think that mental health care might be a little hard to receive in Black communities, mostly because when we talk to our parents, they might brush it off a little bit, or they just tell them that it's because of something else, whether it's because you're on the phone all the time or something like that.
But there wasn't always social workers, therapists, counselors that were normalized in the communities or very accessible as they are now in different places, because there's more outreach, there's more actually things that are located closer to those neighborhoods, or there's more people that are willing to go back to those places and actually work with those students and establish themselves in the schools, so forth. There seems to be more programs that actually want to look at that.
Honestly, I have mixed feelings about it. I have some people who've tried seeking help, but then the people who they were seeking help from didn't really help them at all. And some people were they don't trust them.
So, I think mental health is looked at as being crazy, something wrong with you, and that varies depending on experience. I think that people have had with what crazy looks like. So the not having the label of being crazy is a big stigma.
Personally, no, I didn't grow up with a stigma about it. It was just kind of, if you have a problem, you just gotta deal with it by yourself, I guess.
For me personally, growing up, I didn't really think about it too much. I know most of it was media, just what I saw in movies or what I saw in TV shows. I didn't really think about it too much outside of that. I didn't really think about myself going to see a therapist or anything of that. I didn't really have a knowledge of therapy in general. It could have just not existed, and it wouldn't have affected anything for me. It wasn't until much later in life, getting more experience and getting exposed to more, that it became more relevant. But growing up, it was just I would see either a really good therapist or a terrible depiction of a therapist in media, and it was just that was my understanding.
And it was more from my grandma was, kids don't get angry or feel negative emotions, which made me even more angry. And then there was my parents who were they'd think I was overreacting.
Yeah, in a sense I do, because What we know historically is that minority, especially Black communities, have been suppressed and not allowed to access certain resources that can put them in a certain position in life. And so that creates stress. And what we know about mental health and mental illness is, stress is a huge factor in that. And so when you think about some of the biggest stressors that us as a society has, so socioeconomic status, physical health, relationship status, marriages or whatever, those things are really stressful in and of itself. And so as a Black communities are at an increased risk for those type of stressors. So then, yes, they are at an increased risk for mental illness.
It could possibly be true because over time we've been taught to think a certain way, and so we're all used to that, and instead of bringing each other up, we just continuously put each other down.
So research, just what comes from it, and depending on who's doing it, it can end up creating a painting with a broad brush. It can apply to places where it doesn't. A lot of times that results in certain students even entering school being taught by individuals who already see them a certain way before they've even had a word or interaction. It creates expectations of entering jobs or just the interview itself to where, these individuals are just putting this certain expectation. And it's almost like, okay, you're working to debunk it. You're working to prove that you are smart, that you are, just aware of yourself and, can operate functionally, versus the expectation or, what's already set in front of you. It's not to say that people of color, that includes a large range of different diverse people, or more susceptible, I would say, I guess, to mental health issues, but those that aren't identified as people of color can also be as well. It just depends on a lot of things. It depends on upbringing. It depends on their values in life. It depends on their support network, because some of the most impoverished communities end up having some of the brightest people, some of the most amazing and influential folks. So it just, there's such a range to it. I guess that's the beauty of it too, though, in the relationships. But, it's also these things that a lot of people have to fight against that aren't present for everybody. So it's an advantage and a disadvantage.
Partially, because there's some people who will be ignorant, and if something happens to them, they'll be like, it's because I'm Black, isn't it? And I'll be like, nah, you just slow.
I think that people want to feel like there's a level of relatability. And unfortunately, I don't think we as a human race just identify on that basic element that we're all humans, and there are different categories that separate us, and so race is one of them, and that experience that comes with the race is another thing. And so as an individual consumer looking for mental health services, I think that people look to someone who they feel may be able to relate to their own individual issue. And I think that is problematic because, again, at the core of mental health issues, it's all just, to me, human imperfections that we're all connected by. And so we can all relate on that level. Now, individual experience is something else. That someone may be seeking. I need you to be able to, or there's a higher chance that you will be able to relate to my own individual experience.
I think that there could be more because from experience, I remember one time I was upset at school. It was my freshman year and I would cry a lot. And one time my counselor asked me if I had a father in my life. And I kind of just stared at it because it's that's not even why I'm crying. it was just kind of weird. I feel like if it was an African American, they wouldn't have asked that because it doesn't seem important.
I think whenever you can diversify a field that impacts diverse populations, it makes sense. You know, I think that allows it to be more dynamic. I think it allows for mental health to become more of a expected thing, you know, an expected outlet to turn to versus an anomaly in a friend group, an anomaly in a support group, to where a lot of people in that support circle could use the help, but not everybody is susceptible to it. Not everybody knows that it's available. Not everybody sees somebody they can identify with. So having more diversity, where there is more males, more females, more people of color, so forth, I think that's great.
Hello, hi, my name is Bukola, and can you please tell what your name is?
Miss Mahoney.
Hi, Miss Mahoney. We're just going to ask you a couple of questions about depression, specifically related to Black teenagers. The first question would be, what is the definition of depression to you?
So to me, the definition of depression would be when people are going through, for whatever reason, it could be socio-cultural, biological, or cognitive reason that causes them to feel saddened, causing them to withdraw from things that make them happy, their families, and their personal life.
I think depression is like ultimate sadness in a way. Like you just can't, it's like a hole of sadness that you can't crawl yourself out of.
I would say in my own words that the definition of depression is the feeling of lack of respect and lack of love, and just feeling like you can't make it out to the next day.
Personal life.
Do you think that many people have a specific race associated with depression, and why?
I think depression affects people of all races and all ethnicities. I do think that some cultures and some groups view depression in different ways and acknowledge it in different ways.
How do you feel that social media impacts teenagers' depression?
I think it definitely impacts teenagers. I just heard through a conversation that there's been a rise in teen depression and suicide as we've seen the rise of social media.
Social media impacts teenagers' depression by like bullying, cyberbullying, or they get made fun of over a picture or something, how many likes they got, how many followers they got, and so stuff like that.
I think that nowadays with people, kids and even adults alike, but I think it affects kids a lot, is getting, the likes and the followers, and they feel like a real self-worth through social media. So I do get fearful that they get caught up in that, and if they feel like a lack of self-worth, that could cause depression.
Cornelia Reynolds discovered the unthinkable. Her 8-year-old son dead in his bedroom. Gabriel had hanged himself from his bunk bed.
He probably didn't want to say, "Mom, somebody bullying or picking on me," He just didn't know how to tell me.
A recent study shows suicide rates for Black children aged 5 to 12 were 2 times higher than white kids of the same age. Kathy Williams has made it her mission to help.
I will not stop, and especially in the Black community, because we don't think it happens to us.
So, like, a lot of kids and like Black families who experience depression or feel like they come like close to it, like it can be added on to by parents disregarding it. So like if you tell your mom in a Black family, like, "Mom, I think I'm depressed, I think I'm sad," more than likely, like in an African American family, the person like suppresses it. Like, what do you have to be sad about?
Do you suffer from anxiety or depression?
Both or both?
I struggle with depression.
How long have you struggled with depression?
For about 2 years or so.
Yes, depression.
I have suffered from anxiety, and I also have a colleague who has suffered from anxiety, or who is still suffering from anxiety.
How do you treat it, if you treat it at all?
Usually I just find time to myself, and I go and think about everything that happened and try to find a way to fix it.
I just try to find happiness in the littlest things. Perfect mate, smile in a person, characteristics.
Not me personally, but I know some people who may treat it in unhealthy manners. Like, I know some people who may drink. I know some people who may take prescription drugs. I know some people who may smoke cigars to kind of treat their anxiety.
What do you think some triggers may be for people's anxiety or depression?
A lot of stressful events, multiple times, or it's been stressful events like one after another.
School, IB, all the work that they assigned us. The death of my grandma.
Well, for my colleague, it was triggered because she was robbed. And she was robbed right in front of her house. So that causes her to have anxiety because she no longer feels safe in her home, but the options to move are kind of limited.
So a lot of things I see. Trying to show anything.
Triggers. Stress can be a big trigger. Life events. So a lot of times before people experience a period of depression or anxiety, there's an event that happens that can spiral. So say for somebody who has social anxiety and they have to speak in front of their class at school, then the event is the class, and then they become anxious, they become worried, maybe stutter when they speak. So usually there is an event that happens before people start to feel symptoms. And also reminders of the past, so things that have happened in the past or different experiences that people may have had that influence, the triggers that happen.
With being a Black teenager, do your parents help you with your mental illness?
But if I ask, they'll help me.
Yes, to some extent. Give me other options outside of school, like sports.
How do mental illnesses go undiagnosed?
Mental illnesses go undiagnosed for a variety of reasons. One, it could be a cultural thing where people aren't necessarily attuned to the different ways that mental illness manifests. I will also say access, so some people might not have access to get to a therapist or a psychiatrist or a doctor. And then the last thing is, I would say education around like what a particular mental illness looks like, and also acceptance. So coming to terms with the fact that something may not be right, and being able to accept that someone might need some help. And then the last thing I'll say, particularly for African Americans and other people of color, is discrimination. So there are some people who might go to seek help and then someone discriminates against them, and then they're like, well, I'm just not even going to go any further with seeking mental health care.
I say that because so many times being a part of the religious African American community, a lot of people tend to say, well, you must not be doing something right, or you must not be living right with the Lord. Turn to God, He'll solve all your problems. When there are certain problems that need to be addressed, that while religion can solve those problems, but it's like, well, okay, this God that you're talking about may have a therapist that this person could go to. So there's a negative impression of going to therapy or going to seek help, or it may be kind of seen as a sign of weakness. So just that whole perception is something about it. And I think a lot of times in the African American community, I don't know if it's that we have to be strong. We feel like we're weak or vulnerable because of it. So I think that those are some factors that we may feel like it's in some ways our fault, or we can conquer it without having to turn to outside supports or services.
What are some treatments for anxiety?
Treatments for anxiety, thought logs are really good. So thinking about the different thoughts that come about and being able to unpack those thoughts that could impact symptoms. I will also say some other strategies that are good is exposure. So there are some therapists that do exposure therapy where they put people in the situation that brings them anxiety, and then they have to, be able to work through it. And then the other part that I would say is doing assessments and different things like that, assessing things that have happened that trigger the anxiety, and being able to work through different strategies to prevent the increase in symptoms of anxiety in the future.
What do you think about depression? What is your meaning of it?
So, depression is something that everybody goes through in life, whether you can consider yourself happy or sad. And it's something that can be beaten or is not easily beaten. So,
depression, just feeling powerless, feeling oppressed, and there's nothing you can do about it.
I would define depression as a mental state you're in when nothing can make you happy. You just say.
Someone that is actually within the negative and actually wants to be that. Someone that's actually sad and that is showing negative vibes.
Depression is an over idea of melancholy and sadness for a long period of time. In America, it's known depression is extended, prolonged sadness for over 2 weeks.
Have you ever dealt with depression yourself?
Yes.
Are you dealing with depression now?
I deal with it often, but I know how to cope through it.
So, have you ever dealt with depression?
For me, no.
Have you ever had depression?
Yes, I was diagnosed with clinical depression when I was 14 years old.
So, what would be the advice you would give to someone else dealing with depression?
Do what makes you happy. Don't listen to other people, because that can be part of what causes your depression. Just follow your dreams and do what you love, and that'll help in everything.
What is some advice you would give to others dealing with depression?
Some advice I would give to others is don't let your rainy days indicate your future, because what happened in the past is not going to happen 10 years from now.
So what's some advice you'll give somebody dealing with depression?
One, talk about it to your family members and seek some positive words from others.
does mental wellness mean to you?
Mental wellness means being holistically well. So not just your mind and your body and your physical being, but also how you're feeling psychologically, politically, spiritually, environmental. I look at like every aspect of my life and how my mental health condition can be affected in all those different areas, and what can I do to enhance those areas, but also reduce the stressors that can happen in those different areas of my life.
Is depression to you?
Depression to me. I would say in the past year and a half, 2 years, I've gotten more intimately connected with depression. My really close family member has depression, and just seeing how it impacts her has honestly given me kind of a new realization of it, which is really an absence of the ability to really see yourself and see the situations around you clearly.
Oh my god! Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness!
With that little bite.
Go.
We can't do each other, bro.
Keep going.
We can't do each other. We have to go downstairs and do other people, bro. I was in the back like, I couldn't even get it out.
Okay, do me, just do me.
Okay.
Wait, let me stop. What are your thoughts on depression?